Hello and welcome. So glad that you tuned in today. We are at Living and Loving Each Day, Bridging Barriers. And I'm just so glad just that you've tuned in because this is a place where we celebrate resilience, we celebrate love, and the power to overcome life's obstacles. And I'm your host, Sue Jansen. Just so glad to be here. I'm a professional singer, recording artist, certified life and resilience coach, and I have a passion for helping individuals who are just overcoming any obstacles that are in their life, and a lot of our barriers, but some are harder to get over than others, right? But so join me on this journey, and I'm just so happy that you are here today. And please like and subscribe, and you'll get more information and more amazing guests. And today I'm very excited to introduce you to Robyn McTague, and she is an insightful, inspiring expert in personal development and emotional intelligence. And she's also into healing energy. And so Robyn is a seasoned coach. She's a trainer. She's a speaker who uses her innovative approaches to help individuals navigate life's challenges and to align with their true potential. So that's why I'm inspired by her, and I'm so glad to share her with you today. So, as the creator of the Chakra System of Transformation, she's going to talk more about that in a second. She integrates energy work, numerology, and practical coaching strategies to empower her clients, just to break free from those limiting beliefs and those limiting patterns that we all, I think, have. And so, whether she's on her one-on-one coaching sessions she does, or workshops, or speaking engagements, Robyn's mission is to foster growth and resilience and harmony in those that she works with. So, her clients and our audience. So, we're thrilled to have her on the podcast today, and just to dive into her wisdom and where she comes from. And also, we want to talk about and talk maybe more deeply about this at the end, and it's about peaceful parenting. We know that that's an area that a lot of people in my audience are parents of children with adaptive needs, or just in other situations where they're having trouble a little bit in that marriage situation. So we want to talk to her about that as well. So everybody, thank you so much, and welcome, Robyn. Thank you for being here.
Thank you so much for having me. Great to be here today.
Oh, this is great. So tell us, tell us a little bit about you, more about you, and what drove you to do what you're doing, why you're passionate about what you're doing today.
Sure, thank you. Yes, I came from a very challenged upbringing. My dad was an alcoholic, abuser. My mom was suicidal and mentally ill. The first time I remember her attempting suicide, I was 4. So I had to grow up fast. I felt like I didn't really have a childhood, and my mom and dad separated when I was 6. And so we lived with other families. I felt like the outsider, didn't feel like I fit in. And so I became really shy and quiet and didn't really know how to express myself. It wasn't encouraged. And I was really afraid of anger. And
Mm.
so I didn't like to deal with conflict. I was very conflict avoidant and passive aggressive. And that played out in my life a lot.
Mm.
And I thought, I have to do something about this. I went to university. Originally, I wanted to get into television on the camera end. At that
Ooh.
time, there was no women doing it, and I wanted to be a trailblazer. And it was very misogynist. It was, oh, you're a woman, you want to be in front of the camera. No. So I actually, because I was always very aware and wondered why people did what they did, that was kind of my mission. It was like really understanding people. So I went into psychology, which was really my love. And so, the universe kind of showed me the path that would give me the most insight that I wanted and to understand myself and other people.
Mhm.
And so I really took that deep dive into psychology, and I trained in counseling, and then I got a certification in conflict resolution, which was amazing. And here in the Vancouver area, we had one of the 2 schools in North America at the time. The other one was in California. So I felt very fortunate that I had that opportunity. And I got involved in some union work where I worked and learned to be okay with the conflict and be able to speak what was important to me. And so then I've gone on to add other pieces to that, including the motivational map and the Enneagram and these different tools that help us to understand that internal conflict that we have and those tensions and how to bring that to light. So much of what we do is in our unconscious and patterns that we repeat from our childhood. So it really was about learning what are those patterns, the relationship patterns, the bad marriage, the like, why did I do that? They look different on the outside, but there was that same undercurrent of anger and not addressing it. And so there would be this cycle where there would be a blow up and it got to the point of violence. And so it was, I finally started to do the work on myself to deal with some of the other past traumas. And it's like, no, I'm out of here. And then 24 years ago, I had breast cancer, and that was another turning point in my life where I reconnected to the spiritual part of myself and brought that in. So I really believe we have to look at ourselves holistically, mentally, emotionally, spiritually, and physically.
Wow. That's a lot. That's a lot that you've gone through. And I think that's why you're so influential and so understanding of what other people have gone through. I can relate to a lot of that, the trauma, the childhood, all that stuff. So thank you for sharing that. That's really good. So what are you doing? What's your most important thing that you're so excited about doing like now? Like what areas are you working in specifically? If there's just one.
I would say what comes up the most, no matter what I do, is conflict resolution. Like, even when I started to teach the meditation class, because I found it was a real lifesaver for me going back into the workplace at that point and understanding I was taking on other people's energy and having that energy shielding to say, this is mine and this is yours.
Yes.
So, we're all empathic on some level, and especially with your audience, right, where they're dealing with really challenging
Mhm.
circumstances in the family. And so we leak our energy to other people to be loved, to get our needs met in whatever way that is for us. And so learning that was really important. But even my students would come forward, and I started to basically do coaching before I was even doing it
Yeah.
really technically.
Before you
And
realize you're doing it, right?
because I had one woman, and she was having conflict with her partner, and we talked about it, and she went on to really feel good about what she was doing. They did want a family, but she didn't want it right then, so she was able to get her business going, and now they have a child and they're very happy. But they had to negotiate that because timing was different for each of them.
Mhm. Mhm. Wow.
And so I would say even when I do the whatever I do, it always comes up.
Interesting. That's a kind of a common thread. I find that in my story, and the reason that I love doing this topic about bridging barriers is my daughter had a baby, and when my granddaughter was 8 weeks old, she had a near SIDS incident. So she stopped breathing. My daughter found her in the crib at 8 weeks old and like blue, and it was just the most terrible thing that happened. And then, but the really good news is that she was she thrived, like she survived it. They got her breathing by the time the ambulance got there, and there was a neighbor came from next door, a nurse neighbor that was next door, and came across and got her breathing again. But she has occipital lobe damage and parietal lobe damage, so she has cerebral palsy, and she has cortical vision impairment. Her eyes are fine and beautiful and they're gorgeous. She looks at you right away when she's talking, but she doesn't process anything. So she sees lights and colors and she can identify them, but she can't see us. But so that was from the near SIDS incident. So that's kind of, and I find that the parents that I talk to that have that incident in their family, anything that's traumatic where their child has something happened to them, that those parents have just so much, not that it's extra stress, but it's another kind of stress, I think, and that conflict comes in because that's a struggle, and it's, your baby survives, but it's really doesn't make it easier because now the attention goes to the baby from other siblings, and there's just so many things, so many factors that play in there. But if you can share anything that to bring that peaceful parenting into that home when those things are there, because we're not going to change those things, and we know that that's their life now, that's their new life, and that's what they are happy to, they take care of their children so well, and they're so um, dedicated to all the areas of their child's life. So how can they have that peaceful parenting home?
Yeah, absolutely. And the psychology shows, right, when we're under stress, we still revert back unless we have other skills built in to those old ways of parenting that we were parented. So unless we bring that to our consciousness and learn those skills when we're not under stress, they go out the window. So that's the first thing is it's challenging to find that time, but really finding that time to build some skill level and build our capacity, right? We talk about that both with the Enneagram work and in psychology, like what is our capacity? And as we get stressed with money and all these different things that often come up because there's extra stresses around money for these special needs things and maybe modifications to your home and all these different things that you have to do, money becomes a stressor as well. So we can lash out just because we're feeling stressed and not really mean it, but the other person takes it personally.
Mhm.
So the first thing to do is really to understand each other's communication style. And this is where the motivational map is really helpful because with couples, we can understand what are my top three motivators, what's my bottom one that I might neglect. And so I don't really see it as important in another person, and where those potential conflicts, both internally for myself and with each other. And it also shows us how open we are to change. So we have relationship motivators, achievement, and growth. And so if we're really high in one area, it goes from a want to a need. And unless I get that met, I'm not going to be happy with anything in my life because motivation comes from within. We have this old way of thinking that there's internal and external, but there's no external. It only comes from within because if you try to make someone do something, chances are they're not going to do it unless they really want to. So I think that's one of the myths that we have in society that really has been dispelled.
Mm.
So we do have the capacity. We know with brain science that we can build new neural pathways, but we have to keep those habits going. So with the map, it's understanding what are those places where maybe I go forward 2 steps and then back 5. So maybe I do want to learn and grow and learn about my child's needs, and I want to take this course. But on the other hand, financially, that's not the best idea. So we have these kind of ways back and forth, or my partner has this one way of looking at it and I have another. So when we can bring in a neutral language and say, oh, I see what's important to you, and this is important to me. So how do we work with this? And especially the one that we don't value or see the value in without reframing it. So, for example, when I was in the workplace before I left there, I didn't see relationships as important at the workplace
Mhm.
because I had my other things. I was working full time. Lunchtime was my gym time. I was teaching the meditation on the side. So I saw those people as needy. So maybe your partner has more relationship motivators, and relationships take time. So they want more of your time. And for you, it's more, I want to learn and grow on my free time. I want to read my book or learn something, watch a video or a TED talk or something.
Yeah.
So we have this unmet need from each other that we don't understand.
Mhm. And so is there a quick and easy way to find out what that is? Is
Yeah, there's an assessment tool that I do. So you both do it, and then we come together and say, okay, this is your usually a session for each person individually and then together. And I've used it with couples even that are moving into retirement. So it's like, oh, what are we going to do with their time? Right. And one person's off, I'm going to be learning all these courses. So how are you going to spend time together? Otherwise, the relationship's not going to stay. And how about financially? Are you
oh,
going to put a spending limit on that? Or are you just going to do whatever you feel like you're doing and stress your finances? So there's lots of ways we can use that.
oh, good. Like that's bridging a barrier too, because just that transition from working to being retired and being together with a partner who you were not together with 24/7 before. Like that's like a recipe for it could be a recipe for disaster unless that. But I think what you're talking about is the self-awareness. So what you do is you provide an opportunity to say, this is what's important to me. And then it actually, I think it's when some people don't even realize about their own selves, like they don't have that self-awareness. So I think you would also draw that out to find, and they go, oh well, that's why I do that, that's why I blow up when you mention this topic or whatever. So that makes it
Yeah.
a lot of sense, so that yeah, that helps them understand each other and themselves.
Absolutely, because this is why I do that, and the Enneagram also gives our way that kind of view of the world, our map of the world, our reality strategy, and getting what I need, and
Mhm.
that need is different for each person, and again, when I can verbalize that because certain types especially do it in a way that they don't wanna say it outright.
Mhm.
I'm giving love to get love. And so what happens if I'm not getting that back with these unmet needs that I'm not speaking? Because how can someone know what's going on in your head? Then I can build up resentment. And so that resentment builds that bigger and bigger gap between you. So these assessment tools I use, I love because they give us a path for growth. They
Mhm.
don't just describe it like a lot of assessments. This is actually giving you a tool to say, okay, now that I know this, this is how I can start to work with it.
Oh, that's wonderful. That's practical as well, and to get past all that, because there's so much already to worry about that they have on their plates. So that's really powerful. Well, thank you. That's great. Is there anything? I'm just thinking if there's anything else that you want to share with us, anything that's coming up for you that you want to let us know about, or else also I'd love for you to give like your website so people can know how to get in touch with you.
Sure. Yes, I was in a book and my chapter was partner conflict resolution. And so there's 5 steps. So I'll just give you the highlights
Yes,
and you can
yes.
look into it further. So number 1 is be curious. That was my biggest thing that I learned in conflict resolution. Be curious. All behavior makes sense. And that can be both with myself and with someone else. So be curious and be open to asking questions. Don't take things personally because it's what's going on with them. And it's really hard, especially in a more romantic relationship and a partnership where you're spending a lot of time together. Acknowledge your part. So, really, what is my part in this? So often, and certain Enneagram types do this, and I'm a big offender that I've had to really step back, is project onto others.
Oh,
They're doing something. The system is doing something. Someone else is doing something. But what is my responsibility in this situation?
mm-hmm.
And then choose happiness, right? Be willing to negotiate. What are the things that we have in common? There was a book out years ago, From Position to Interests, and it was kind of the main book on negotiation. So really, what are those common things that we have? We both want this family to thrive. We want to have a life that's harmonious, that we can go with the ups and downs. Life is never going to be perfect, to
Mm-hmm.
understand that. And then fighting fair, learning just like you do with a child where we separate out the behavior from the person.
Yes.
Let's do that with the adults too. Let's not forget we all have our inner child. So that inner child wants that acknowledgement, and we can do that with each other.
Mhm.
And the last one is to create ground rules in advance. So maybe you have a very difficult topic. So you say, okay, we're going to do it, not in front of the children. We're going to set up a coffee date. We're going to set up something, a very specific time where we have time to think in advance what's important to us about this, maybe make some notes for ourselves, come together and then discuss it. Not just, I need to talk to you right now, right? That's
Ooh.
regulation where, the dreaded words, we need to talk.
That scares anybody. That scares everybody.
Exactly. So it's how can I just take that breath? And that's one of the pieces I do with the Enneagram work is a 3-centered practice with breathing to bring our body, heart, and head all into the topics. So the Enneagram gives us different styles of what we're looking for and how we deal with conflict as well.
Mhm. Okay, those are so the 5. I'm just trying to I was trying to memorize and remember the 5 that you said. So be curious, don't blame each other, don't
Don't
transfer
take
your
things personally. Yeah.
don't take things, that's the huge one, right? Don't
Yeah.
take things personally, and don't um,
Acknowledge your part.
acknowledge your part. And that's the blaming part, I think, comes in. That's just acknowledging what your part in all of this. And I was going to write it down, but I didn't. What
Choose
else?
happiness.
Choose. What do you choose? Yeah. Yeah. You
Fight
have a,
fear.
yeah.
And create ground rules in
And create
advance.
those ground rules. So that's a lot of preemptive information that can help people establish what they need to do when those heated arguments or whatever the conflict comes up. So let's plan that out first
And it's
before.
specific to you, right? It's your relationship. They're all different. Just because your parents or someone said in the media that don't go to bed mad, does that work for you or not? Maybe you can just say we need a time out to think about this. And yeah, I still have my feelings. It's okay. We don't need to negate our feelings because they're real for us.
Exactly. So it's just being that self-aware is so important, and to talk to your partner to get this all ironed out before the conflict. So Robyn, this is amazing. Thank you so much for sharing. Can you just leave us with your website or how people can get in touch with you? I'll also have it in the description.
A lifeofchoice.ca. So
Awesome.
it's a Canadian website.
Oh yeah, me too. Me too. So so nice to have a fellow Canadian on here. A lot of my guests are not. For so I'm this is a and you're only one province away. You're just up over the Rocky Mountains from me.
That's right.
So pleasure to meet you and have you on today. Excuse me. Thank you so much for being here. And everybody, thank you for tuning in. I hope that you've found just a little nugget in here that can help you and just support you wherever you are. And just thank you for joining us. And we hope that you're inspired. And please do go to suejansen.ca and subscribe. And if you want to have any ideas or want to connect there, that's a really good place. So thank you, everybody, so much for being here today. And Robyn, you're lovely. Thank you so much for sharing your wisdom with us. We really appreciate you. Thanks, everybody. Bye.